Welcome to Community Conversations. I'm your host, Doris Ballard. This program is available on Concord TV's Channel 22, on demand at yourconcordtv.org, on our YouTube channel, as well as on iTunes as a free podcast. My guests today are Dan Marsek, the co-founder of Science Cafe New Hampshire. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you.
And David Brooks, moderator of Science Cafe Concord, and also a reporter for the Concord Monitor. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, I have to say, I went to the first Science Cafe Concord because now Concord TV is thrilled to be taping it. And by the way, people can watch it through the Concord Monitor or on our YouTube channel, Concord TV. And I was amazed at how many people, it was at the Draft in Concord on Main Street, and it was packed. I mean, people loved science, and there was so much, the panelists were wonderful. David, you were great, and is this something, science cafes that have been going on for a long time? And how did it all start?
Mm-hmm. Science cafes have been going on for a long time. In fact, it's a kind of organization that came from Europe and their culture of cafes. So in Europe, they would sit around and invite scientists to come and talk about something. And being a pedestrian society more than we are, it started a culture of these discussions. And over time, it has migrated to America. And when I first found out about this in about 2006, they were largely a phenomenon of big cities. So you go to the big cities, and today you can go to almost any big city and find at least one or maybe two science cafes. But at the time, I was traveling 80 to 90% of my time, and I couldn't commit to something like that. So when I lost my job in 2008 as part of the Great Recession, I decided that I wanted to start a science cafe. Actually, it took me a little while, but eventually I decided that I wanted to start a science cafe. And as part of the work that I do with veterans, I was talking to the people at the Humanities Council, the New Hampshire Humanities Council, and one of their people said, I shared Science Cafe with her, and one of their people said, oh, there's a girl in Hopkinton who also wants to start a Science Cafe, and her name was Sarah Eck. Mm-hmm. And she was a newly graduated biochemistry PhD from Dartmouth who had a little baby, and she wasn't working, so she wanted something to stimulate her mind and get involved in the community. So in 2010, we started partnering to figure out what Science Cafe New Hampshire would be. And we thought there were no science cafes in New Hampshire at all at that point in time. So it was something that we wanted to bring to New Hampshire.
That was in 2011?
So in 2011, we actually started holding sessions, and we decided to do it in Concord because we thought, well, it's the capital of the state, and it's a geographic center, sort of.
Sort of.
Maybe population-wise. But so we started Science Cafe in Concord, and we invited David Brooks to be our moderator. David was at that time at the Telegraph. And so we ran Science Cafe New Hampshire in Concord for a year or a year and a half.
Something like that.
Year and a half. Really? And it was an impedance mismatch. So David's paper, his work in Nashua, didn't translate to Concord, and we would get 20, 30, 40 people to come, and it started to be a cultural thing, but it never really blossomed. So in 2013,
I think,
we decided to move to Nashua and combine David's association with the Telegraph with the community where it was based, and that turned out to be a great recipe. So despite the dwindling death of the newspaper industry, they still have a lot of influence.
Oh,
and
yeah.
still
Absolutely.
People read the paper. So
Sure.
in Nashua, we've been able to reliably bring 60 or 70 people
That's
together. Not uncommon to have 80. Our most popular topic was the science of beer, and that
You're
attracted
stunned to hear that, I'm sure.
115 people or something.
Wow.
So the point of Science Cafe is not to get big, at least as we interpret it, is not to get big, it's to get engaged. So we don't really want to have 200 or 300 people come to a Science Cafe.
It's an intimate setting, right?
It changes the dynamic. So the ability to ask questions and interact and talk to your neighbor is really important.
Yeah,
What do you think?
absolutely. No, that's it. So,
Have you seen it grow?
well, it's
over the years?
grown. Nashua's pretty much grown, sort of maxed out. We all joke it's a good thing that the fire marshal's not there.
Oh.
So we expanded into Concord this year.
Just kidding.
Just kidding, fire marshal. If we expanded into Concord this year after I moved from the Telegraph
So
to the
now you're at
Monitor.
the Concord Monitor.
So we figured, hey, you might as well take advantage of it. But
Right.
Dan's running the Nashua one, and Dan's moderating it as well as running it. And so I've started moderating the Concord one. And as you said, the crowds have already, frankly,
Right.
maxed out almost the upper room at the draft. Again, 70, 80 people showed up.
The room
to
was filled.
Yeah.
And it's very, as I said, it's intimate, it's cozy, you can have
got beer,
have
you got
beer
food.
and wine and food
Yeah.
and hamburgers and then great,
That's key, is
Yeah.
that it's, the waiters and waitresses are walking in between you and everybody's talking. And from the start, the way Sarah and Dan set it up was it's not a lecture. So we have two rules. One rule, no PowerPoint. It's not a lecture. The other rule, no politics.
good rules.
Good rules. That second one is a
Yeah.
little tough in
I'll
Concord,
bet.
actually. But
I'll
anyway, but they wanted it from the start. This is not a professor comes and tells you what they're doing in their research, which is was one of the models. That's not what they wanted. They wanted, here's an interesting topic people want to learn about, so we'll bring some knowledgeable people in, and then whoever shows up can ask them a question, can ask questions, and that's what it is. So it's a Q&A session, and it's not a lecture, it's not a talk, and so it goes wherever the questions are. Whatever people, and my job and Dan's job is wandering around with a microphone in the audience so that people can be heard and can be picked up by the TV.
But the reason that we do it that way is so that the conversation reflects what the people have on their mind. So it's not a lecture of here's the information, it's about what are the things that you think or you don't understand or you want to know about, so that we can use the experts to directly answer what people misunderstand or misconstrue, or to try and address the problem directly rather than giving a lecture and then a test to find out if people understood anything.
I would probably fail that one, but someone, one thing you said when we were doing a pre-interview today, Dan, is you're creating a better community, and that's sort of the mission in a way. Through science, you're educating. It's social,
Right.
and it's so community.
Right, so at the highest level, our goal is to build a stronger New Hampshire. So we want, ultimately, what we want is for people when they go into a voter's box to understand the issues and to be able to vote from a position of knowledge as opposed to red or blue bias, if you will. So it's about creating a stronger New Hampshire by using science and facts to talk about things and to educate people and to bring people together to hear different points of view and to learn. So we think that makes us a stronger New Hampshire.
No, it's not.
Absolutely.
What we really want to do is to give you an excuse to go to a bar. and
I think it's a win-win.
excuse to go to
It's
a
a
bar.
win-win all the way around.
and pat yourself on the back that I'm here for a bar for an intellectual reason.
and exactly. It's like, look at all the people. I'm here.
That's
and
right.
I'm smart, right?
But-
I want to talk
okay.
about. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, one of the things that when Dan and Sarah approached me about this, hey, we want to do this, do you want to moderate it? My wife and I have been talking about stuff to do in the evenings, and only so often you can go out to a trivia contest or something, and this was exactly the sort of thing that you'd like to go out to. Is there's a moderate amount of lectures around, libraries have them and stuff, but they're lectures. You're sitting in a chair and you're listening, and
Right.
doing it in a bar is much more relaxed and much more comfortable, and so
friendly.
that's part of the reason we
Right.
jumped at it. It
Right.
was the kind of thing we wanted to see.
Right. Well, lots to talk about. If you're just tuning in, this is Community Conversations, a weekly program produced by Concord Community TV, or Concord TV. And my guests today are here to talk about Science Cafe New Hampshire and sciencecafenh.org if you want to go to the website and get all kinds of information about it. And Dan Marsek is one of the co-founders, along with Sarah Eck, who lives in Hopkinton. Couldn't be with us here today, but hopefully someday she will. And David Brooks is the moderator of Science Cafe Concord, and he is a reporter for the Concord Monitor. And by the way, the Concord Monitor, through Concord TV and the Concord Monitor, is the partnership that we are thrilled to be a part of in putting this, in taping Science Cafe Concord. Now,
So let me just
yeah.
pick up on that, Doris, because I think it's an important point. So we've been running Science Cafe for almost 5 years now. We've put together over 40, probably 45 sessions by now. And so as a team, or at least me, I was getting kind of bored with it. And I'm thinking, how can we take the same amount of energy that we put into it and multiply the impact of it? So how can we take the same amount of work and have more people benefit from it? So one step toward that mission is certainly the partnership with Concord TV and the ability to film it and show it on cable and have all those people watch it and tell their friends and watch it again. So that is a really key ingredient to our vision of how do we multiply the impact of what we're doing. So we want to thank you all for being our
We love it.
partners.
It's great content for the public. And on social media, of course, we all share it on social media.
Sure.
And you can say that Science Cafe New Hampshire is worldwide. I love to say that because we are.
you don't say that
You're
enough.
worldwide because people want to tune in on yourconcordtv.org and go watch it on demand or on YouTube. They can see every one of them.
That's true.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit, of course, about the topics and how you pick the topics and how you find your presenters. But first of all, let's tell the public a little bit about yourselves. David, I'm going to start with you. You are a reporter. You've been a reporter for a long time. Tell us a little bit about who you are and why this is so interesting to you.
Oh, I am. I got my bachelor's degree in mathematics a long time ago, but I was unable to make a living with it, so I went into journalism. But so I've always been interested in, obviously, the sciences. And that as part of a general news, I've always worked at small newspapers, and as part of the general stuff you cover, there's frequently an engineering or a science topic. So that's how I've ended up doing it. And I've been writing a weekly column about science and technology in New Hampshire for 25 years now. First at the Telegraph and now up here at the Monitor. So,
And the column is called Granite Geek.
Granite Geek, and
Right.
granitegeek.org is the blog, which, so I throw up random thoughts far too often. People are welcome to check that out. So it fit very well into Science Cafe, obviously. So, but then when I came to the Monitor, they were interested in Granite Geek and keeping it going. They were interested in Science Cafe. They were obviously interested in partnering with you guys. So it's worked out really well.
That's great. And Dan, you are an engineer, an entrepreneur, and among many more attributes that you have in your lifetime career. So tell us what is it about your background in engineering that really intrigued you about co-founding Science Cafe New Hampshire?
I'm not sure it had anything to do with engineering at all. My natural interest is in science and math. I was a math major for a while till I figured you couldn't get a job in that.
Wow, I'm in the presence of intelligence, I'll tell you.
But I worked in high tech for 30 years, building computers.
You worked with Hewlett Packard?
So I worked in big companies, small companies. I started at Sanders in Nashua, and then I worked in startups for a while, and then I ended up at Hewlett Packard for quite a while. And one of the things that I was blessed enough to do was have the chance to see the difference that technology made on people. So, it was interesting to me because one of the best experiences I ever had in my career was taking the Myers-Briggs test. And the Myers-Briggs test told me about myself and it told me about everybody around me, which I thought was really cool. But if I'd have taken the Myers-Briggs before I went to college, I would have been in social services or I would have been in, health somewhere because that's what my personality wants to be. So taking a look at how technology impacts people was always sort of what I cared about, and I didn't really know why, but that explains why. So Science Cafe to me is a realization of, I guess, more of a social imperative than a scientific imperative. So I think that we as individuals need to do the things that we believe in to try and make our society stronger. So I have businesses that work with veterans. I have businesses that work with old people. But
you bring about partnerships, I sense
Yeah,
that
that's
collaborations, partnerships, and I think that's happening more and more today.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people call it a fishing trip, but serendipity has a lot to do with the things that we end up doing in
That's
life.
interesting that you would say
And
that.
keeping your
You're right.
eyes open and not looking at your feet too much. Those are important lessons. If you're looking for if you're looking for opportunity to come along, you have to be open to it. So when I lost my job, I said, you know, what's the positive that can come out of it? Well, one of the positives was I was in New Hampshire, and I was able to invest some time and resources in putting together Science Cafe. So for me, it's not a science mission, it's more of a social mission.
But having said that, from the start, we emphasize science technology, partly because many other places don't. There's a lot of lectures you can go to about, you know, obviously you're in Concord, if you want to talk about public policy, you can just go to anywhere. But there's a lot of lectures about history and frankly arts and things, but there are fewer public events accessible to the general public that are science oriented. So that was really the thinking from the start.
And the truth is, from the start, people come up to us at Science Cafe and say, thank you for creating this place. Not thank you for the topic or any information. Thank you for the ability to come to a place and talk about science. So there's some people who just have an appetite to go and have a civilized conversation about some interesting topic.
Sure, as you said, where can you go during the week? Because most of these are happening during the week.
Tuesdays for me and Wednesdays for Nashua.
So it's at the first Tuesday?
First Tuesday of the month for Concord.
At the draft in Concord. And, but there are a couple of months that you may, like
We
the
had to
holidays,
move
that
because
sort
of this presidential thing that got in the way. I forget what it was. Anyway, yeah.
I know.
No,
And
I think she's
and-
talking about July and August.
Right,
when-
the summer.
when we-
But
in
where is it
December.
in Nashua? It's
In
at,
Nashua, it's at Killarney's Pub,
Okay.
which is in the Holiday Inn at Exit 4 on Route 3.
Right. Okay, so if you're just tuning in, this is Community Conversations, and my guests today are Dan Marsek, co-founder of Science Cafe New Hampshire, and David Brooks, the moderator of Science Cafe Concord, and also a reporter at the Concord Monitor and columnist for Granite Geek. So we have two geeks here that are very smart, I may add.
She likes
All right, let's talk about, well, the time we have left, let's get people excited about the types of content, the types of science topics that you had, and how you found your panelists. That must be a lot of fun.
We
So
should
who
have
wants
brought
to
our
start
list.
with
I
that
got a
one?
list right here. You
All
guys
right, there
can't
you
read my
go.
writing
Give
now.
All
us,
right.
give a sample of what we've done.
And the way we do it is Sarah and Dan and I basically get on the phone and yell at each other for half an hour and figure out a topic. And you try and find something that's interesting, that's reasonably topical, and that you can get panelists who are knowledgeable who will show up for free. So those three things are a little.
That was the traditional approach. In Nashua now, we've gone to a committee of people to try and help select topics, and they come
good.
up with a list, and then we sort of ignore them and do
Do
what we
what you want to do. And there's no funding for this. This is
No.
just a passion
That's
that
right.
everyone who's involved.
there's
Right.
grassroots.
There is absolutely no funding, nobody else. I mean,
Right.
we get the restaurants give us the space for free because obviously they get customers in, but
Right.
there's no money. We just do it for the fun of it, frankly.
Okay, all
So
right.
topics we started out with climate change, future of food, remember vaccinations. So we tend to do some medical. So we did seasonal affective disorder, Lyme disease, arsenic in our water. I guess that's sort of medical. Multiple sclerosis.
Wow.
That was a very interesting one. We do some that are tech. So 3D printing, electric cars, nanotechnology. Those tend to be very big. Our next one in Concord, April 5th, is going to be about autonomous vehicles, self-driving cars, and I suspect that will bring out a
That should,
large
right.
crowd, indeed. A
Self-driving
lot of
cars.
energy, geothermal energy. We've done solar power and various types of biomass energy. Future of food, we did one on the state of fishing and the fisheries.
So the topics are
The topics are all over the
endless,
place. Flexible
really, right.
electronics. This was Dan's. He said flexible electronics. I said flexible electronics. What the heck is that? And it was a great. It was a great session. So anyway, Bitcoin. We've actually done it twice,
Right.
and it's a big hit. So so it's all over the place. But the question is getting panelists. They tend to be frequently from Dartmouth, UNH, or they work for the state. Department of Health and Human Services, things like that. But we've had CEOs, we've had attorneys, we've had independent consultants. We've done the science of polling twice because we've now done it during 2 presidential primaries.
That must have been very interesting.
That was
Ah,
geeky, I'll tell you
yeah.
that. But that was interesting. And so
Do you ever repeat any of them because they're so popular? I mean, do you take one in Concord and maybe bring it to
Well,
Nashua? Or I know
so-
they have one in Portsmouth as well.
So David mentioned that we did repeat polling, but in the bigger picture, when we started, there were no science cafes. Then another one started in Lebanon, another one started in Portsmouth, which you just referenced.
Right.
Another one recently started in Manchester at the Sea Science Center. So
So it's catching on.
there is now a loosely coupled coalition of science cafes around New Hampshire. So we still would like to think about Plymouth, we'd still like to think about up north. There's still
Keene.
some geographies that we could touch. But what we've done is loosely collaborate. So once in a while, we'll take a topic and try and have one topic statewide. So everybody does one session. The first time we did that was on food. So in 2012, I think we had, everybody in the state did a session on food.
Some food-related topic.
Right. Recently, this year, we decided that opioids, heroin, and addiction is the topic that we want to focus on. So we had a session in Lebanon. The bigger we. We did a session in
The one here
Concord
you saw that was
in,
packed.
in January. No, she didn't go to that one. She
I
went
didn't
to-
go to that one, and I wasn't around, but I'll tell you, you
was-
should repeat that one, I'm sure.
It was more crowded than
Yeah.
Bitcoin.
I think it would be great to repeat it.
We did one in Nashua a couple of weeks ago on opioids, and I would like to take it around the state. I'd like to do a few more of them. But as a result of the opioids session of Science Cafe in Nashua, the aldermen came to us and asked us to reconstitute the panel for their Human Affairs Committee. So they wanted the Human Affairs Committee of the city to have a chance to talk to the panel and understand better what's going on with the opioid crisis in Nashua. So I thought, that's how the conversation continues. So our measure of success does the conversation continue? Do we make a difference? Do people start to think differently or get more engaged? So that was really interesting to me to see the aldermen
Yeah.
pick it up.
That's good.
Well, I can't believe that our time is just about up. I would like to ask you, we're going to give the website, which is sciencecafenh.org. So the
Don't
public...
forget the NH.
NH, right, sciencecafenh.org. And the next one in Concord is the Nashua, it's March
Nashua will be March
March
16th
16th,
on Zika.
Zika. That's a very
Very topical.
relevant
He's really
topical,
turned
right?
that around fast.
Absolutely. And if this is aired after the program, then don't let that stop you from going to some of the other Science
Right.
Cafe in New Hampshire's. So sciencecafenh.org. And I'm going to ask Dan Marsick, co-founder of the Science Cafe New Hampshire, for one final comment.
One final comment. I guess what I would like to see are more science cafes. So if there are people who see this, who want to help in the ones that exist, they should contact us. If they want to start one in their own community, I think we're here to help them try and do that. So the more people talking about things, the better off we're all going to be as a community.
Absolutely. And David Brooks?
I'd have to absolutely agree with that, is that they are, not only are the people who show up and ask the questions tend to be really interested and enjoy it, but I found the panelists, and we've had 120, 130 panelists by now.
We could have done a whole half hour just talking about your panel.
Oh, and
Right.
afterwards, they're always really excited. They've always learned something from some of the other panelists or from some of the questions. So it works out well.
Well, I think that being part of the STEM that we're teaching our youth, and if you add arts, we had said it's STEAM. It begins with science, and science, you kind of make it something interesting, and you are making it so that people can understand it.
It's part of life. It's
Right,
just part of ordinary
right.
life. It's not this separate thing that's over there in a classroom you only go to once a week. It's the same thing as talking about, the Red Sox
Right.
or
And it's not all
movies.
lecture. I
No.
mean, people are asking questions, and
Right.
it's just a social,
Sure. It's
It's very
Opportunity.
dynamic, very
That's right.
interactive.
right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, David Brooks, the moderator of Science Cafe Concord.
Yes.
And Dan Marsick, the co-founder of Science Cafe New Hampshire. And again, sciencecafenh.org. Check it out, because there's a lot of information that you're going to want to know that we couldn't even begin to cover here.
Absolutely.
And also, yourconcordtv.org. And the Monitor's website is
Concord Monitor.
.com.
.com is a
Okay.
.com. I just
Google
clicked on- I just
Concord
clicked
Monitor,
on it,
you'll
yeah.
find it. And also you can find it on Concord TV NH on YouTube. Just Google it, you'll find it. You'll be able to see some of the other programs. We
Yes.
started it
January, so there's 3 of them up now.
fourth one.
Yeah,
Right.
so.
So we're excited to be a part of it, gentlemen. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for being on Community Conversations today. Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
And come back anytime you want.
Okay.
And thank you for tuning in, whether it's listening on our podcast or on our channel. We are also on demand. You can watch any of this program, yourconcordtv.org, anytime you want. Even if you are in Australia, you can watch it. All right. Have a great day, everyone.